Crisis, future, uncertainty. We received a number of emails of people who said, we struggle dealing with the future, and do you know anyone who could help us to be a bit more safe, secure, knowledgeable, or anyone who could help us to deal with the uncertainty we face at the moment? And yes, I know someone, Graeme Codrington, international expert, consultant, and global keynote speaker. I saw Graeme speaking at different events around the globe. Absolutely fantastic. So thank you very much for taking the time. Hello and welcome, Graeme Codrington.
Hi, thanks, Niels. Great to be with you.
Thank you very much for taking the time. So now, of course, we get straight to the point. People now say for the first time so many of them said, we are a rather conservative business. You have ups and downs, but normally it is pretty stable, plus minus 10%. And suddenly we have what we have at the moment. How do we deal with this uncertainty when it comes to our corporate culture? Because at the moment, we simply don't know what to tell our own people.
Well, Niels, the interesting thing is that I've been doing the work that I do for nearly 20 years now. Started my business 19 years ago, and it's called Tomorrow Today. We help people think about tomorrow and then work out what they need to do today in order to prepare for it. And for the last 20 years, I've had to spend almost all of my time when I work with clients, when I speak at conferences, when I work with executive teams, I've had to be convincing them that the world is not as stable as they think it is, and that actually their organizational systems and structures have tricked them, if you like, into believing that the world around them is stable, but actually it isn't. And what they need to do is prepare themselves for uncertainties and disruptions that are coming their way. And of course, there have always been examples that I can point to. There has been the digital revolution that's been coming. And I mean, you've been to all the conferences I've been to with those ridiculous slides that keep talking over and over again about Uber and Airbnb and so on.
Yeah.
But having said that, those are cliches, of course, and they outdated already, but they weren't wrong in the fact that there were a lot of industries that were, I put this in inverted commas, taken by surprise. I mean, how do you get taken by surprise by a technology that's been coming for 20 years? You know, how can e-commerce take a retailer by surprise? How can Amazon take somebody by surprise? It's 20 years old already. And so a lot of people were, I think, hiding away from disruption and hiding away from change. Now, of course, COVID has just hit you in the face. You can't hide. Even you, Niels, in the beautiful place that you live, even you can't really hide. Yeah, you may be doing better than the rest of us in hiding from COVID, but even you can't get away from it. And so for me, it obviously is an important question. It is the right question, but we need to frame the question in saying, actually, we live in a world where these disruptions are now normal. And COVID tells you what it feels like, but let's use COVID to actually adjust our organizations to get ready for the next one and the one after that and the one after that, because the rest of the 2020s is going to feel exactly like this feels. I really do believe that.
When you work with executives, with the executive teams, many people struggle to think, what should I tell my people right now? I could either tell them it's all fine, which it clearly isn't, or I could tell them it is not fine. There's a high level of uncertainty, which of course will make people feel insecure and look on the job market if they want to go somewhere else to a different industry, but I don't want to lose my best people. What would be your advice about communication to your own people, to your own organization?
What a great question. You know, I think that there are three things that probably need to be talked about. The first is, I do think that we've got to bring people back to our purpose as an organization. Too many companies, as soon as they were hit by COVID, they went into what I call busy work. So they've got lots and lots of meetings. People were working from home, but they were Zooming with everybody all day, every day, just to prove that they were busy and that they were doing something. And not enough people stepped back and said, what's the bigger context? What's the bigger picture here? And not enough companies stepped back and said, what's our genuine purpose? in the mix. Not our purpose to make money for our shareholders, not our purpose to deliver, we can use cliches here again, high quality, good value products to our customers, et cetera, et cetera. But what is the underlying purpose of our organization? And a lot of companies have done quite a lot of work over the last few years to get that purpose into their organizations. The millennial generation, the younger employees, have kind of forced them, I think, to step away from just delivering products and services to actually saying, how are we making a difference in the world? And if your company is making a difference and can make a difference, then that becomes the heart of your communication. So it's not about how productive are you delivering what you're supposed to deliver as an employee, but let's step back and say, what's our contribution? What difference are we making in the world? And get your team to focus on that. The second thing then is to not give people false hope. I think what people want to hear from their leaders is, this is tough, but we can get through it. And I'm a South African, but I have a British heritage. And I think we all sort of, as those of us with British heritage, we always channel Winston Churchill whenever we need to kind of get into that space. There have been other great examples over the years of people who have been able to say, this is tough, but we can do this. We can get through this. And I think Barack Obama, towards the end of his presidency, he actually acknowledged that was one of his biggest mistakes. He did a great job early on of saying, hope and change, we need to make a difference. But he overpromised and underdelivered. And that's his own analysis. And I think as a leader, I actually think it is a bigger mistake to give people false hope than to give them no hope at all. Now, both of those are incorrect. So I'm not saying you're choosing between those. I'm saying there's a middle line. And the middle line is to be honest with your people, to say, this is where we are. This is the situation. It is tough, but here is what we are going to do about it. And here is what we are going to engage in. And that leads me to the third thing I think that we can do, and that is to involve people. Because you right now as the leader, you might not know what to do. You might not know what the right thing is to do. And what you can do is you can open up your organization to say to people, what should we do? And Niels, for me, we could have an entire conversation, and maybe we can have a part 2 of this conversation, because I think that we need to be developing adaptive intelligence in our organizations and applying adaptive leadership principles. And one of the key principles of that is that the leader doesn't have to know exactly where to go next. When you are leading a team where the team is connected to the purpose, is motivated to succeed, then part of your job as a leader, like if you're riding a horse, you and the horse have to work together. It's not the same as driving a car where you are in charge. You've got to make sure the horse wants to go in the direction you're wanting to go, and you work together. And that's the model of leadership we need to develop. So what you can do right now is, and here's just a simple illustration, and there's much more we could add to this, but this will help. In most organizations, information flows to where the authority is. What do I mean by that? Is that managers and leaders and executive leaders in particular sit in their offices and they gather reports. And then they get together in their executive teams and they read the reports and they make decisions. Information has flowed up the organization. It's been reported, summarized, analyzed, and arrives at where the authority is. However, in the type of environment we're in at the moment, in the chaos of the COVID crisis, we need organizations that are much more agile, much more nimble. And what we really need is authority to flow to where the information is. So say, for example, you've got an organization that's got to go out to all of your clients, all of your customers, and you've got to discuss with your customers in this chaos, in this crisis period that we're in, what do you need now? And the clients are going to say things. We need to renegotiate the terms of our contract. We need discounts. We need faster delivery. We need slower delivery. You know, we don't need as many parts, whatever. The clients are going to tell your sales representatives, your relationship managers, the clients are going to tell them exactly what they need. Can those sales representatives make decisions in the moment? Can they represent you? Probably not, right? They have to come back to head office, deliver the information back to their a committee. That committee then goes to the executive team who have to sign off on new contracts. Legal and compliance want to get involved. The marketing team wants to make sure that the Pantone color on the letterhead is correct when you send the contract renewal back to the client. And the salesperson's waiting for a few days to get an answer for their client. Why don't we give the authority to the salesperson who has all the information anyway? And we need to build organizations where we, it's not only about trust, it's not only about having faith in our salespeople, it's that our salespeople are exactly the right people to do this. And that, Niels, for me, becomes the leadership task in a time of chaos, to work out how do you build an organization where authority and responsibility are aligned. If you have responsibility to do something, you have the information you need to do it, and you also have the authority and the backing of the organization to make it happen. So, sorry, long answer, but a really great question as to what organizations, leaders can be focusing on right now. And it's not focusing on surviving a crisis. It's focusing on building an organization that is adaptable in a time of disruptive change.
That is an excellent answer. Thank you very much for that. And it leads directly to the next point. When you say giving authority to other people as well, we had quite a number of people who not only said, we were working in a department who should be, well, we are responsible for planning for the future, but our budgets were cut down to pretty much nothing because they often said, you're always painting stuff negative and you're just negative, negative, negative. Most of what you ever predicted never happened, so we're not going to give you money. Suddenly, of course, they have their budgets, of course, due to COVID-19. But now they wonder, how can we keep the momentum up that the organization will prepare proactively? Because often, especially senior leadership and board of directors said, our shareholders want profit and cutting costs for these kind of scenarios. Although, of course, you could claim what happens if, but that doesn't work for a very long time. How can I overcome the resistance of senior management to actually invest to be prepared for the future?
What a great question. Brings to mind the fact, you know, that as a futurist, I've been doing this for 20 years now. Every now and again, my mother still asks me when I'm going to get a real job. You know, because I think that a lot of people don't understand what it is a futurist does. Now, maybe you weren't using the label futurist. Maybe you had the label strategy department. Yeah. Or strategic planning or something like that. And I hear exactly, what a great question, that, you know, a lot of these departments over the last few years have lost their budgets and lost their prominence. The first person that we kind of claim as our grandfather of this was, of course, Charles Handy, who did scenario planning for Shell in the 1960s. And he went on, he moved on from Shell and actually started the London Business School as a way of helping leaders and managers in large organizations to think about leadership and management and organizational structure and think about the future. So the task of whether you call it futurists or scenario planners or strategic, the strategy department, we have a long history of over 60 years of saying our task is to prepare the organization for the future. The problem is that we've got the same issue that a lot of HR people have, and even I think some IT people, and that is that a lot of futurists don't have business training. So they scenario planners, they develop scenarios, but they don't do a good enough job of linking it back to business implications. And to be honest, I think that's a part of why I've got the reputation that I've got. I started life as a chartered accountant. I did articles at KPMG. and studying towards going into that side of life, and then got fascinated with IT disruption, and then moved and had a small IT startup. So not only do I have the business training and a commerce degree and training in commerce, I also have the business experience in starting and running a business. And then when you then come in and say, now I'm helping you to develop your strategy, I can speak the language of the business people. I can speak the language of the executive team, which is the language of profit and loss, the language of income statements and balance sheets, the business language. And so the simple answer, although it's a difficult thing to do if you don't have those skills, the simple answer is you have to speak the language of business. You can't just develop scenarios divorced from the actual experience, the real life experience of the business people. HR have to learn this lesson as much as IT have to learn this lesson, and the strategy and futurist teams have to learn it too. So that's the best advice. Right now, it should be quite easy to do, because your task as a futurist is probably to look only a few weeks ahead and to help the business make business decisions. If you learn your lesson as a futurist or a strategy planner or a scenario planner, if you learn the lesson of how to do that now during COVID, then COVID will be very good for you afterwards if you keep that business focus later.
Excellent. So when people are now sitting in their offices and think, okay, that's quite a bit of work to do for us because maybe we haven't even properly started to implement these procedures in our organization, what, to wrap the whole interview up, are Graeme Codrington's top 3 tips what they should to do now to get started?
Well, sure. That's a tough question. So top three things for you to do if you're a business leader who wants to be a little bit more future focused. I think that the first thing is you have to step back from that busy work I was talking about. And you have to take time out to look at the context. Niels, when we went into lockdown, there were a few people, I know that you and I share a few friends who were talking like this and saying, oh, we're so looking forward to this holiday, this lockdown holiday. We're going to read all the books we were planning to read. I'm going to learn a new language, a new hobby. I don't know about you, but that wasn't my reality. And that certainly hasn't been the reality of any business people I know.
Exactly.
It's been 16-hour days. Weekends have disappeared. I took 2 days out this past week because I just couldn't anymore. I didn't look at my emails. And when I came back yesterday morning to my emails, there are 350 emails that need my attention. It's ridiculous. And some people are thinking, this is good. Look at how productive we are. Look at how hard we're working. But you're going to fall over in a heap. You're going to collapse. And from a business perspective, it also means you're making very, very, very short-term decisions. So tip number 1, step back and look at the horizon. If you prefer a different analogy, get off of the dance floor and go to the bar, grab a drink, stand on the balcony and watch the dance for a little bit. Take a few hours out each week that you allocate for thinking about the future. That then means that you need to be having some great strategic conversations. So the second thing I would suggest is strategic conversations. That can be in the form of podcasts. So well done. If you're listening to this podcast, I say that's a strategic conversation. But why not pick up the phone, drop a line to Niels, to myself, to some other interesting people in your network that will give you different perspectives. Get outside input is what I'm saying, to have strategic conversations with people who will give you different perspectives from what you have now. And then thirdly, I think engage with the unexpected voices in your team. And what I mean by that is that by now, during this lockdown COVID crisis, you should be in a new normal. I know that that's a cliche. I don't mean it in the way some people mean it. I just mean whatever your business has been doing is kind of normalized. A whole lot of you are working from home. You're Zoom calling your teams all the time, etc. That's become normal. Look for the people who are pushing back against that.
Mm-hmm.
Look for the people who are saying, isn't there a different way? Isn't there another way? Isn't there a better way?
Mm-hmm.
And if you can, take them out for a coffee or a lunch. If not, just have a private Zoom call with them and ask them what they are seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Look for the lights of people who are seeing a better way, a different way, even in the midst of this crisis, to respond. And what that is doing, what I'm suggesting with that tip, is you're switching on a radar that you should never switch off again.
Mm-hmm.
One of your main tasks as a business leader who is future focused is to ask that question all the time of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a better way? Because you know what the answer always is: yes.
Yeah. Excellent. That is excellent advice. Of course, I'm going to put Graeme's contact data into the show notes of this podcast. So if you want to discuss any further, or what I would highly recommend, book Graeme for your conference, just get straight to him into his inbox. And now the only thing I have left to say for this podcast is, Graeme, thank you very much for your time.
Niels, thank you so much. And thank you for the inspiration that you were personally to me in the way that you dealt with lockdown early on. You really did help me, and I'm sure you've helped many other people as you continue to do. Thank you.